What if I told you that a skinny kid from the suburbs of Paris, so broke his family couldn't afford proper football boots, would one day lift the Ballon d'Or and be called the most exciting player of his generation? That this same boy, who was rejected by multiple academies for being too weak, would become the player that Pep Guardiola called unplayable, and Lionel Messi described as pure magic. This isn't some fairy tale. This is the absolutely incredible true story of how Ousmane Dembélé went from the streets of Vernon to conquering world football. But here's what'll blow your mind. Dembélé's journey wasn't just about overcoming poverty and rejection. It was about a kid who was so naturally gifted that he could use both feet equally, who could dribble past 3 defenders while eating a sandwich, and who had such raw pace that coaches couldn't believe what they were seeing. We're talking about a player who redefined what it meant to be ambidextrous in football. I've spent weeks diving deep into Dembélé's incredible rise from the French suburbs to football's biggest stages, analyzing his unique playing style and the obstacles he overcame. What I discovered will show you exactly how natural talent combined with unbreakable determination can overcome any circumstance life throws at you. So buckle up, because this is the story of how a broke French boy became football's most unpredictable genius. It all started in Vernon, a small town about 60 kilometers from Paris, in 1997. Ousmane Dembélé was born into a family that knew struggle intimately. His father, Ali, worked multiple jobs just to keep food on the table, while his mother, Fatimata, cleaned offices and took care of the children. Money was always tight, opportunities were scarce, and dreams seemed like luxuries they couldn't afford. But even as a toddler, Ousmane was different. While other kids played with toys, he played with anything round he could find. Tennis balls, oranges, even crumpled up paper. If it could be kicked, Ousmane would turn it into football practice. Ousmane was obsessed with the ball from the moment he could walk. His mother later recalled, "We couldn't afford a proper football, so he would play with whatever he could find." But even then, you could see he had something special. The family's financial situation was so dire that when Ousmane started playing organized football at age 6, his parents couldn't afford proper boots. He played his first matches in worn-out sneakers that were too big for his feet, held together with tape and determination. But here's where Ousmane's story gets incredible. Despite having the worst equipment and playing on the roughest pitches in Vernon, he was already making older kids look foolish. His natural ability was so obvious that coaches would stop their own training sessions just to watch this skinny kid with the magic feet. "I've never seen anything like it," said his first youth coach. Ousmane could use both feet equally well, which is almost impossible. Most players favor one foot, but Ousmane was genuinely ambidextrous. Defenders never knew which way he was going to go because he didn't know himself until the last second. At 8 years old, Ousmane caught the attention of scouts from bigger clubs, but here's where his journey almost ended before it began. Multiple academies rejected him for being too small, too weak, too skinny. They said he'd never survive the physical demands of professional football. The rejections were heartbreaking, his father, Ali, remembered. Club after club told us the same thing. Ousmane was talented, but he was too fragile. They said he needed to put on weight, get stronger, become more physical, but we couldn't afford the nutrition programs or the gym memberships they suggested. Most families would have given up. Most kids would have been crushed by the constant rejection, but Ousmane, he used it as fuel. Every no made him more determined. Every rejection made him train harder. Every doubt made him more creative. He started practicing tricks that other kids couldn't even imagine. While they were working on basic passing, Ousmane was inventing new ways to beat defenders. His signature move, a double step-over followed by a sudden change of direction using his weaker foot, became legendary in the local youth leagues. Ousmane didn't just play football, said a childhood friend. He danced with the ball. It was like the ball was attached to his feet by an invisible string. Defenders would try to tackle him, and he'd just glide past them like they weren't even there. The breakthrough came when he was 12. Stade Rennes, a professional club in Brittany, were holding trials for their academy. Ousmane's family scraped together enough money for the train ticket, and he traveled to Rennes with nothing but hope and a pair of borrowed boots. The trial was brutal. Hundreds of kids from across France, all fighting for just a handful of spots. But within minutes of the session starting, everyone knew who the special one was. Ousmane wasn't just better than the other kids. He was playing a different sport entirely. "I remember that trial like it was yesterday," said the Rennes youth coordinator. Ousmane was still this tiny, skinny kid, but he had something that can't be taught: pure instinct. He would receive the ball in impossible positions and somehow create magic out of nothing. Rennes offered him a place in their academy, and at 13, Ousmane left his family to pursue his dreams. The academy provided housing, education, and most importantly, proper coaching. But the transition wasn't easy. Moving to Rennes was the hardest thing I'd ever done, Ousmane later revealed. I was homesick, I missed my family, and I was still the smallest kid in every training session. But I knew this was my chance, maybe my only chance to make something of myself. At Rennes, Ousmane's development accelerated rapidly. The professional coaching helped him refine his technique, but more importantly, it helped him understand the tactical side of the game. He learned when to dribble and when to pass, when to take risks and when to keep possession. But his natural flair was still the most impressive thing about him. In youth matches, he would regularly score goals that left spectators speechless. His ability to cut inside from either wing, using either foot, made him virtually impossible to defend against. Coaching Ousmane was like trying to contain lightning, said his youth coach. You could give him tactical instructions, but once he got the ball, he would do things that weren't in any coaching manual. Pure instinct, pure creativity. By the time he was 17, Ousmane was ready for professional football. He made his debut for Rennes' first team in 2015, becoming one of the youngest players ever to represent the club. His first touch in professional football, a nutmeg on an experienced defender that had the entire stadium on their feet. His breakthrough season came in 2015-16. Playing primarily as a right winger, Ousmane scored 12 goals and provided 5 assists, but more importantly, he was creating moments of magic that had scouts from across Europe taking notice. Watching Ousmane play for Rennes was like watching a video game, said a League One defender. He would do things that shouldn't be possible. The way he could change direction at full speed, the way he could shoot with either foot from any angle. It was frightening to play against. His performances caught the attention of Borussia Dortmund, who paid 15 million euros to bring him to Germany in 2016. For a kid who had grown up with nothing, this transfer was life-changing. But more than the money, it was validation that his dreams were becoming reality. At Dortmund, under coach Thomas Tuchel, Ousmane's game reached new heights. The Bundesliga's pace and physicality suited his style perfectly, and he quickly became one of the most exciting players in European football. His statistics were impressive. 10 goals and 21 assists in his only season at Dortmund. But numbers couldn't capture the impact he had on games. His ability to create something from nothing, to turn a boring 0-0 draw into a thrilling spectacle with one moment of brilliance, made him must-watch television. Ousmane brought a different dimension to our team, said his Dortmund teammate. When he got the ball, anything could happen. The crowd would get excited, the opposition would get nervous, and we would get confident. He was a game changer in the truest sense. If you're getting goosebumps hearing about this incredible transformation from rejected kid to European sensation, make sure to subscribe to Soccer Chronicles because we celebrate the stories that prove talent will always find a way. Trust me, Ousmane's journey to the very top gets even more incredible. Barcelona came calling in 2017, offering a staggering 105 million euros plus add-ons that could reach 147 million. For a player who had been rejected by academies just a few years earlier, this was the ultimate vindication. But the move to Barcelona wasn't smooth sailing. The pressure was immense. The expectations were sky high, and Ousmane was still just 20 years old. Early injuries disrupted his rhythm, and critics started questioning whether Barcelona had made a mistake. The pressure at Barcelona was unlike anything I'd experienced, Ousmane admitted. Every touch was analyzed, every decision was scrutinized. I went from being the exciting young talent to being the expensive flop in the space of a few months. But here's where Ousmane's character shone through. Instead of crumbling under the pressure, he used it as motivation. He worked harder on his fitness, studied the game more intensively, and gradually started to show why Barcelona had invested so heavily in him. His breakthrough moment came in the 2018-19 season. Playing alongside Lionel Messi and Luis Suarez, Ousmane finally found his rhythm. His pace and directness provided the perfect complement to Messi's creativity and Suarez's finishing. The statistics started to improve. 14 goals and 9 assists in all competitions, but more importantly, he was creating moments that reminded everyone why he was considered one of the most exciting talents in world football. His goal against Tottenham in the Champions League, where he cut inside from the right wing and curled a perfect shot into the top corner with his left foot, was pure poetry. His assist for Messi against Real Madrid, a perfectly weighted through ball that split the defense, showed his vision and technique. Playing with Ousmane was incredible, Messi later said. He has this ability to do the unexpected. Just when you think you know what he's going to do, he does something completely different. That unpredictability is what makes him so dangerous. But Ousmane's time at Barcelona was marked by frustration as much as brilliance. Injuries continued to plague him, limiting his appearances and preventing him from building consistent momentum. The club's financial problems also meant constant speculation about his future. In 2023, Ousmane Dembélé made the bold decision to leave Barcelona and return home, signing for Paris Saint-Germain. For many, it was a chance at redemption, an opportunity to rediscover himself after years of injuries and frustration in Spain. At PSG, first linking up with Kylian Mbappé before his departure, Ousmane grew into a new role. The system was different, the pressure immense. But something changed. The flashes of brilliance became more frequent, the inconsistencies fewer. Slowly, he began to silence the doubts that had followed him his entire career. The 2024-25 season wasn't just a turning point, it was the year Ousmane Dembélé rewrote his entire story. No longer the winger of unfulfilled potential, he became the heartbeat of Paris Saint-Germain. His blistering pace, his two-footed sorcery, his ability to conjure something out of nothing. It all came together in one unstoppable storm. In Ligue 1, he terrorized defenses week after week, but it was in the Champions League where Dembélé became immortal. Against Europe's giants, including his former club Barcelona, he delivered goals, assists, and breathtaking moments that silenced every critic who had ever doubted him. Luis Enrique, who had seen Ousmane as a real teenager at Barca, couldn't hide his awe. When Dembélé is confident and fit, he's unstoppable. And this season, he's been unstoppable every single week. By the end of that campaign, Ousmane had guided PSG to the Holy Grail, their first ever Champions League trophy. The Parc des Princes was electric, and at the heart of it all was Dembélé, a man who had gone from fragile promise to unshakable superstar. His numbers were staggering, over 35 goals, countless assists, and game-defining performances that carved his name into football history. But more than the stats, it was the way he played, fearless, unpredictable, devastating, that made him the soul of PSG's greatest triumph. So the next time you see a young player who doesn't fit the traditional mold, who's been told they're not good enough, who comes from nothing but dreams of everything, remember Ousmane Dembélé's story. Remember that greatness can come from the most unexpected places. If this incredible journey from poverty to the pinnacle of world football inspired you, make sure you're subscribed to Soccer Chronicles, because we celebrate the stories that prove dreams have no limits. Hit that subscribe button and click the notification bell so you never miss our deep dives into the human stories behind football's greatest achievements. Trust me, there are so many more incredible tales of triumph over adversity waiting to be told, because sometimes the greatest victories aren't just won on the pitch, they're won in the hearts and minds of people who refuse to let their circumstances define their future. And nobody embodies that spirit better than the skinny broke French boy who conquered the world.